A 19-year-old woman entered a relationship with a 34-year-old man who already had 3 children. Another actress had barely turned 25 when the entire internet immediately turned her breakup into a joke. And one man met his future wife when she was still a young contestant, while he already had a career spanning decades. These are not just love stories, they are debates about age, power, fame, and judgment. But when 2 famous people are separated by 10 years, 20 years, or even nearly 40 years, romance instantly becomes a public trial. Audiences examine when they met, their professional status, money, romantic history, and even the woman's age when the relationship began. Today, we are looking back at 15 Hollywood couples who sparked controversy because of their age gaps, from marriages that are still going strong to relationships that have become part of the past. I'm not here to condemn 2 adults simply because they were born in different years, but I also do not want to pretend that age, power, and life experience have never raised uncomfortable questions. Trust me, the deeper we go, the more complicated these stories become.
Behind the glitter, the scars remain. Welcome to Hollywood Stars and Scars.
Number 15. David Foster and Katharine McPhee. In 2006, Katharine McPhee appeared on American Idol as a young singer looking for a life-changing opportunity. David Foster was already a powerful producer and songwriter with decades of experience. At the time, their connection existed only between a contestant and a mentor, and no romantic relationship was ever made public. Years later, after Katharine had matured and built her own career in music and acting, the 2 began dating. However, the public focused almost entirely on the 34 to 35-year age gap between them. Jokes about their ages, David's marriage history, and the difference in power when they first met quickly overshadowed the entire story. David and Katharine married in London in 2019, then welcomed their son Rennie 2 years later. They perform together, make public appearances, and allow music to remain part of their family life. No one knows what happens behind closed doors, but their marriage has lasted much longer than many of the original negative predictions. What makes this case worth thinking about is not only the 35-year difference. It is also the way a relationship that began in an environment with a major difference in age and professional status changed after many years. Outsiders have the right to ask questions, but asking questions does not give anyone the right to be insulting. As David and Katharine continue living according to their own choices, they appear to have decided that not every piece of gossip deserves an answer. If a 35-year age gap surprised you, the next couple comes even closer to 40. Number 14. Steven Tyler and Aimee Preston. Before becoming Steven Tyler's girlfriend, Aimee Preston worked as his personal assistant. Steven was the famous frontman of Aerosmith and had already lived through decades of fame scandals and major tours. Aimee was much younger and entered his life through a close professional position. She began working for Steven around 2012. By 2016, the 2 publicly appeared together at the Elton John AIDS Foundation's Oscar viewing party. Their nearly 39-year age gap immediately became the center of attention, turning every affectionate image of them into a subject of debate. Some people argued that they were both adults and had the right to make their own choices. Others were concerned because the relationship began between a powerful celebrity and someone who worked directly for him. The circumstances of their meeting, their professional positions, and the level of dependence involved meant that the story was not simply about age. Steven and Aimee rarely explain their relationship, but they have continued appearing together for many years. The fairest approach is to acknowledge their right to decide how they live, while also understanding why the public paid attention to the original imbalance of power. However, interest should not turn into ridicule or definite conclusions about things outsiders have never witnessed. Steven Tyler and Aimee Preston have lived with that noise for years. But in the next case, the debate was not only about the age gap. It began when an actress who had barely entered adulthood fell in love with a man who had already lived through an entire golden era of television. Number 13. Megan Fox and Bryan Austin Green. In 2004, Megan Fox was only 18 when she met Bryan Austin Green on the set of Hope and Faith. At the time, she had not yet become the famous sex symbol she would be after Transformers. While Bryan was around 30, and widely known for Beverly Hills 90210. Megan once said that he was initially hesitant because she was so young, but the relationship still developed despite their 12 to 13-year age gap. The two became engaged in 2006 just as Megan's career began to accelerate. After calling off the engagement once they reunited and married in Hawaii in 2010. While Hollywood presented Megan as sexy, rebellious, and almost untouchable, she was growing up inside a marriage that was constantly watched by the media. Megan and Bryan had 3 sons, Noah, Bodie, and Journey. In 2015, she filed for divorce, but the two later reconciled and welcomed their 3rd child. To the public, that reunion once looked like a happy ending. However, sometimes getting back together is simply the final effort of 2 people who are not yet ready to admit that they have changed in different directions. In 2020, Bryan confirmed that they had separated, and the divorce was finalized in 2022. After nearly 2 decades of breakups and reunions, they left the marriage but remained connected through their responsibilities as parents. Their story did not end because of one single moment, but because of time, maturity, career pressure, and the distance between 2 people who began at very different stages of life. But while this case is about youth growing up under the spotlight, the next couple shocked Hollywood with an age gap of nearly 40 years. Number 12. Dennis Quaid and Laura Savoie. Dennis Quaid met Laura Savoie at a business event in 2019. By then, he was already a familiar Hollywood face through The Parent Trap, The Rookie, and The Day After Tomorrow. Laura was not a young actress searching for fame. She had an educational background in accounting and was pursuing a career in business and healthcare. However, their nearly 39-year age gap immediately made the relationship controversial. Dennis was in his 60s while Laura was still in her 20s. She was quickly reduced to a number while he was viewed as an older man repeating a familiar Hollywood pattern. The two became engaged only a few months after making their relationship public. After the pandemic changed their plans, they married in June 2020 during a small seaside ceremony in Santa Barbara. There was no red carpet or extravagant wedding, only 2 people making a decision that much of the public still found difficult to accept. Dennis has repeatedly described the marriage as a major source of happiness and said that age is not something they focus on. Even though Laura has her own education and career, the generational difference and the gap in life experience have still caused many people to raise questions. We can be cautious without being cruel, while also respecting an adult woman's ability to make her own decisions. Dennis and Laura chose to build a life based on privacy, faith, and companionship. They cannot stop the public from talking, but they can stop living to satisfy the public. The next case involves a much smaller age gap, but the ghosts of a former relationship caused the internet to turn 3 adults into a dramatic love triangle. Number 11. Nikki Reed and Ian Somerhalder. Nikki Reed and Ian Somerhalder were once seen as the perfect couple from the vampire world. Nikki became famous through Twilight, while Ian became an icon through The Vampire Diaries. Both had large fan bases and public images connected to 2 fantasy franchises that strongly influenced popular culture. When they began dating in 2014, the relationship quickly became controversial because Ian had previously dated Nina Dobrev, his famous co-star. Nikki was also believed to have once been close to Nina. The internet immediately created stories about betrayal and conflict, even though most of the people commenting had no idea what had actually happened between the 3 of them. The 10-year age gap was not the biggest issue. Nikki was attacked because fans were still deeply attached to the on-screen pairing of Ian and Nina and wanted the fictional romance to continue in real life. Nikki and Ian became engaged in January 2015, married 3 months later, and gradually stepped away from Hollywood's noise. In 2017, they welcomed their daughter, Bodhi Soleil, followed by a son in 2023. Their lives have become increasingly focused on family, the environment, and personal projects. What stands out is that they did not allow a previous relationship or fan expectations to define their family. But silence does not always protect a couple. For the next 2 stars, comments about their 21-year age gap became so vicious that the woman had to directly ask the public to stop. Number 10. Zach Braff and Florence Pugh. In 2019, Zach Braff directed Florence Pugh in the short film In the Time It Takes to Get There. At the time, Zach was already famous for Scrubs and several writing and directing projects, while Florence was becoming one of Hollywood's most highly praised young actresses. When the public discovered that they were dating, their 21-year age gap quickly overshadowed every story about their work. Zach was in his 40s while Florence was only in her 20s. Many people did not simply ask questions. They attacked Zach's appearance and worthwhile insisting that Florence should not be with the man she had chosen herself. In April 2020, after a birthday post for Zach received a wave of negative comments, Florence spoke out. She stated that she was an adult who could earn money, pay taxes, and decide whom she loved. She was not asking the public for permission. She was simply asking people to stop turning her personal page into a place for cruelty. The public has the right to discuss differences in power, but that does not give anyone the right to control the choices of an adult woman. Florence and Zach kept most of their relationship away from the media spotlight. In 2022, she confirmed that they had quietly broken up because they did not want a private situation to continue becoming material for millions of strangers to judge. To me, that is the saddest detail. Even while ending the relationship, they still had to protect their heartbreak from people waiting to say they had been right. But the next case was even more brutal. The entire world practically turned a woman's birthday into the expiration date of her relationship. Number 9. Leonardo DiCaprio and Camila Morrone. Leonardo DiCaprio and Camila Morrone were believed to have started dating in late 2017. By then, Leonardo was already an Oscar-winning star with a career spanning decades, while Camila was in her early 20s and building a name in modeling and acting. Their age gap was about 23 years. The relationship was quickly placed in the context of Leonardo's dating history because many of his former girlfriends had also been significantly younger. The internet had long created a narrative that the women beside him never seemed to make it past the age of 25. As a result, Camila was repeatedly turned into a number in a public joke instead of being recognized for her own career. In 2019, Camila defended her right to make her own choices, noting that Hollywood had seen many age gap relationships and that people should be allowed to date whomever they wanted. However, she also admitted that it was frustrating to have her romantic life overshadow her work. The couple kept their relationship fairly private and rarely appeared together officially. In 2022, after about 4 years together, their breakup was confirmed shortly after Camila turned 25. The internet was immediately flooded with jokes as though a long-running theory had finally been proven. But the truth is that no one outside the relationship knows the real reason it ended. The relationship was over, but Camila still had to fight against being remembered only as a former girlfriend. And while that story shows how love can be turned into a meme, the next couple proves that a marriage can become an empire, a brand, and an emotional battlefield all at once. Number 8. Jay-Z and Beyoncé. Beyoncé and Jay-Z were once viewed as one of the most powerful couples in the music industry. She grew from Destiny's Child into a globally influential artist, while he became a leading rapper, producer, and entrepreneur in hip-hop. There is an age difference of about 12 years between them, and Beyoncé was still very young when she met Jay-Z, while he already held a major position in the industry. During the early years, they kept the relationship fairly private before their music gradually revealed their connection. Oh, 3 Bonnie and Clyde drew public attention, while Crazy in Love turned their chemistry into part of popular culture. They married privately in 2008 and later welcomed Blue Ivy and twins Rumi and Sir. Money awards, sold-out tours, and major business deals made their marriage look nearly perfect in the eyes of the public. But in 2016, Lemonade took listeners through betrayal, anger, and healing. 1 year later, Jay-Z admitted that he had been unfaithful, completely changing their seemingly untouchable image. What stands out is that they did not turn the crisis into a public war. Beyoncé put her pain into her art, while Jay-Z expressed regret and responsibility through his own music. Betrayal should not be romanticized, but this story shows that staying does not necessarily mean weakness, just as leaving does not mean failure. Every person must decide for themselves what can be forgiven. The age difference was part of Jay-Z and Beyoncé's early story, but it was eventually overshadowed by larger questions about trust power and repair. The next couple has a much lighter public image, although their marriage has also been connected to controversial decisions. Number 7. Blake Lively and Ryan Reynolds. Blake Lively and Ryan Reynolds met while filming Green Lantern in 2010, although both of them were in separate relationships at the time. They remained friends before beginning to date in 2011. Ryan is about 11 years older than Blake and already had years of experience in Hollywood, while she had just become a fashion icon for a generation through the success of Gossip Girl. The two married in South Carolina in 2012. Years later, they publicly apologized because the venue had a history connected to the plantation system, admitting that it had been an uninformed choice. They later built a family with 4 children, James, Inez, Betty, and Olin, while becoming one of the most popular celebrity couples because of their humorous teasing on social media. However, the jokes and red carpet images are only the part of their lives they choose to make public. Humor may reflect a genuine connection, but it is still a controlled image. Behind it are the responsibilities of raising children, career pressure periods of separation, and private difficulties that audiences will never see. Even so, Blake and Ryan have maintained a public sense of teamwork. Their 11-year age gap gradually became one of the least discussed details because their energy and status appear more balanced than in many other cases. But not every romance that begins through work ends in marriage. Sometimes it lasts for years, passes through tours and family life, and still ends with respect. Number 6. Mariah Carey and Bryan Tanaka. In 2006, Bryan Tanaka joined the Adventures of Mimi tour as a backup dancer. At the time, Mariah Carey was already a global icon with a career spanning decades. Bryan was about 14 years younger, and for many years, their connection was viewed only as professional. Everything changed around 2016 after Mariah's engagement to businessman James Packer ended. Bryan began appearing with her more frequently from the stage to private moments. The media quickly questioned his motives, as well as the imbalance of power between a famous star and someone who had previously worked in her touring company. However, Bryan gradually proved that he was not a temporary figure. He accompanied Mariah on tours, appeared at many events, and spent time with her twins. For nearly 7 years, he became an important part of the singer's personal and creative life, although the two always kept their relationship relatively private. In December 2023, Bryan confirmed that they had decided to go their separate ways. The breakup happened respectfully, without accusations or prolonged media battle. A relationship does not need to end in marriage to have meaning. Sometimes the most mature thing is knowing when two people are no longer heading toward the same place. The next story reverses the familiar pattern. The woman was older and more successful when they met, and that alone caused part of the public to react as though the natural order had been disturbed. Number 5. Nick Jonas and Priyanka Chopra Jonas. The 10-year age gap between Nick Jonas and Priyanka Chopra Jonas is not the largest on this list, but the public reaction was especially strong because Priyanka is the older partner. Hollywood has long been comfortable with middle-aged men dating younger women, but when a woman over 30 falls in love with a younger man, she is often judged by a much harsher standard. Nick contacted Priyanka through a private message in 2016. 1 year later, they appeared together at the Met Gala, but it was not until 2018 that the relationship began developing quickly. They became engaged that summer and married in India in December during a wedding that combined Christian and Hindu traditions. Their marriage brought together not only 2 age groups, but also 2 cultures and 2 entertainment industries. Nick grew up through Disney and American pop music, while Priyanka was a former Miss World, a Bollywood star, and later built a career in Hollywood. Although they were accused of moving too quickly or creating a relationship for publicity, neither of them has ever appeared ashamed of the age gap. In January 2022, they welcomed their daughter Malti Marie through a surrogate. The medical challenges during the baby's first months made the online mockery seem meaningless. Nick and Priyanka's story shows that prejudice remains obvious when a woman loves a younger man, but they have refused to allow those standards to determine the value of their family. But even a story once praised by fans as destined love can come to an end. The next couple lived together for nearly 2 decades before quietly closing that chapter. Number 4. Jason Momoa and Lisa Bonet. Jason Momoa first saw Lisa Bonet on television when he was a child and viewed her as his dream woman. In 2005, they met at a jazz club in Los Angeles. At the time, Lisa was already a famous actress and the mother of Zoe Kravitz, while Jason was still building his career. She is about 12 years older than him. Their relationship was unlike many other Hollywood couples. They lived fairly privately, did not rush into marriage, and focused on building a family. Their daughter Lola was born in 2007. Their son Nakoa Wolf arrived in 2008, and in 2017, after more than a decade together, they officially held their wedding. Jason often publicly expressed his admiration for Lisa. He also maintained a close relationship with Zoe and a friendly connection with her former husband Lenny Kravitz. The harmony in that blended family made many people believe that they had found a way to place respect above the complications of the past. However, Jason and Lisa announced their separation in January 2022, although later documents stated that they had been separated since October 2020. Lisa filed for divorce in 2024, and the process was finalized in July of that year. They agreed to share parenting responsibilities, requested no financial support, and kept the ending peaceful. The marriage ended, but the nearly 2 decades they spent building a family and growing together remain a real part of the story. Love does not need to last forever to have value. Sometimes the quality of a relationship is revealed most clearly in the way 2 people end it. Jason and Lisa walked away without destroying each other's image. But the next couple found it even harder to protect their privacy because nearly every family conversation could become television content. Number 3. Kris Jenner and Corey Gamble. Kris Jenner began dating Corey Gamble in 2014, not long after her marriage to Caitlyn Jenner ended. At the time, Kris was already the manager and strategist behind the Kardashian-Jenner empire, while Corey worked in the entertainment industry as a tour manager but was far less known to the public. Their nearly 25-year age gap immediately caused people to question Corey's motives. Many wondered whether he truly loved Kris or was attracted to her money power and family fame. Even Kris's children expressed doubts in front of the cameras, turning private concerns into a subject for millions of viewers to analyze. Over time, Corey gradually became a stable presence in the family. He joined trips, appeared during important occasions, and blended into the Kardashian-Jenner circle without trying to take the spotlight. Perhaps the relationship has lasted so long because he does not compete with Kris's empire, but has learned to live beside it. Kris has admitted that she thought seriously about the age difference before deciding not to let the number control her feelings. Despite constant breakup rumors, the two have remained together for more than a decade. The most remarkable detail is no longer the 25-year difference, but their endurance. In a world where every relationship can be turned into a headline and television content, Kris and Corey prove that older women can also choose love on their own terms, without apologizing. But the next case placed a man who had just gone through a public divorce inside a family connected to 2 of the most powerful names in America. Number 2. Chris Pratt and Katherine Schwarzenegger Pratt. After Chris Pratt and Anna Faris separated, Chris's romantic life was closely followed by the public. They had been loved for their humorous, relatable image and shared a son named Jack. Because of that, when Kris began dating Katherine Schwarzenegger in 2018, many people immediately compared her to his former wife, instead of viewing the new relationship as an independent story. By then, Kris was already the star of Guardians of the Galaxy and Jurassic World, while Katherine was an author and the daughter of Arnold Schwarzenegger and Maria Shriver. They are about 10 years apart and moved fairly quickly. They became engaged in January 2019 and married a few months later in Montecito, causing some people to believe that Katherine had stepped into the roles of wife and stepmother too soon after Kris's divorce. However, Katharine cannot be judged fairly if she is always placed beside Anna as a rival. She became Jack's stepmother and built a new family with Kris. Over time, they welcomed 3 children together and chose a life more focused on family faith and personal values. Their public image has still not escaped controversy, especially after some of Kris's statements about his family were viewed as insensitive to the medical difficulties Jack had experienced. Kris entered the marriage with fame, a child, and a highly analyzed divorce behind him, while Katharine carried the legacy of 2 famous families. They cannot erase the past, but they can try to build a new chapter without living forever inside comparisons made by outsiders. And now we reach the final position, a relationship that began when the woman was only 19 while the man was 34, had 3 children, and remained closely connected to his former partner within a reality television empire. Number 1. Scott Disick and Sofia Richie. In 2017, Sofia Richie was only 19 when she publicly began dating Scott Disick, who was 34 at the time. Sofia was Lionel Richie's daughter and was building a modeling career while Scott was already famous through reality television and his long-term relationship with Kourtney Kardashian. Their 15-year age gap was not the largest on this list, but the fact that Sofia had only recently entered adulthood made the relationship more sensitive. Scott was already the father of 3 children, had lived through years of scandals, and still had to maintain a close connection with Kourtney so they could raise their children together. Sofia had also been close to Kylie Jenner and belonged to the same social circle as the Kardashian-Jenner family. Because of that, she was not simply entering a romantic relationship. She also had to adjust to a world filled with former partners, children, friends, and cameras. Lionel Richie publicly admitted that he was concerned, an understandable reaction from a father watching his 19-year-old daughter date an older man with a complicated past who constantly lived under media attention. For a time, Scott and Sofia appeared to maintain the relationship. They traveled, attended events, and Sofia gradually became part of his family life. However, the difference in their stages of life remained. Sofia was still discovering adulthood, while Scott was already a father and had an inseparable connection to the Kardashian family. The relationship ended in 2020 with many reports referring to personal tensions and differences in their lives. Sofia later married music executive Elliot Grange in 2023, while Scott continued working with Kourtney to care for their children. After these 15 stories, the important thing is not deciding which couple was right or wrong, because a number cannot represent the entire truth. A 20-year age gap does not automatically make a relationship dangerous, just as 2 people of the same age are not guaranteed to treat each other well. What should be examined is the situation in which they met their ages, the difference in power, the level of financial, professional, or public dependence, and whether both people were truly free to make their own choices. Most important is the way they respect each other's boundaries, voices, and personal development. We also need to be careful about the way society judges women in age gap relationships. When the man is older, the woman is easily labeled a gold digger or considered too naive. When the woman is older, she is mocked for her age and appearance. Concern about imbalances of power is necessary, but it should not become an excuse to bully, humiliate, or control adults. We can ask questions without immediately condemning someone, recognize troubling signs without turning another person's story into entertainment. The lesson I want to leave is very simple. Do not choose someone only because they bring fame, money, or a feeling of protection. Do not ignore an imbalance simply because love makes everything look romantic. Pay attention to the way that person respects your voice, how they respond when you set boundaries, and whether they allow you to continue growing as an independent person. At the same time, do not let other people's prejudices live your life for you. If a relationship is built between adults based on consent and respect, and does not involve control, they deserve to be judged by their actions and not only by the years in which they were born. Which person on today's list surprised you the most? Do you believe an age gap is only a number, or can it become a problem when combined with money, fame, and power? Share your opinion in the comments. I genuinely want to know how you view these stories. If you enjoy buried secrets, controversial romances, and the dark side behind Hollywood's glamour, please hit like, subscribe to Hollywood Stars and Scars, and turn on notifications. Your support helps us continue bringing you stories that are deeper, fairer, and more emotional. I will see you in the next video, where we will continue stepping beyond the bright lights to uncover the things Hollywood once wanted to keep in the dark.
Beyond the manufactured red carpet perfection lies a vault of Hollywood scandals, a grim archive we expose here on Hollywood Stars and Scars. We are unlocking the files on fame's unforgiving flesh trade, where natural aging is prosecuted as a felony, and the desperate pursuit of preservation destroys the mind. Yet the darkest betrayal didn't happen on a studio soundstage. How did a globally worshipped television royalty end up injected with black market industrial chemicals by an unlicensed fraud, only for the world to laugh at her permanent disfigurement?
Behind the glitter, the scars remain. Welcome to Hollywood Stars and Scars.
Number 20. Meg Ryan. Throughout the late 80s, Meg Ryan reigned as the undisputed queen of romantic comedy, universally adored as America's cinematic sweetheart. Her effortless beauty anchored multi-million-dollar blockbusters, projecting an intoxicating illusion of relatable perfection. Every red carpet appearance reinforced a meticulously crafted personal brand, cementing her status as a fiercely protected studio asset. As the entertainment machine demanded eternal youth, that pristine facade fractured under immense public pressure. Seeking to preserve her bankable image, Ryan allegedly made a series of irreversible cosmetic decisions that fundamentally altered her iconic appearance. The fiercely loyal media abruptly turned hostile, transforming a celebrated career into a devastating PR crisis as tabloids obsessively scrutinized every modified feature. The resulting fallout effectively dismantled her reign, quietly isolating her from the very industry she once dominated. Her ubiquitous presence dissolved into a contested legacy, overshadowed by an unrecognizable image that audiences brutally rejected. In a ruthless ecosystem that demands flawless preservation, the most unforgiving crime a woman can commit is visibly trying to survive the passage of time. Number 19. Tara Reid. At the turn of the millennium, Tara Reid ascended as the ultimate cinematic fantasy, anchoring iconic comedies that defined a generation. Her effortless charm and radiant presence secured her status as a highly bankable starlet. Every red carpet appearance projected a glittering lifestyle, aggressively marketed by studios to a captivated global audience. Behind the blinding flashbulbs, the suffocating pressure to maintain that youthful perfection fueled a devastating turning point. Seeking to permanently secure her flawless image, she underwent cosmetic procedures that resulted in heavily publicized, irreversible complications. The media narrative instantly weaponized her physical transformation, shifting from breathless adoration to relentless scrutiny. Tabloids mercilessly exploited the surgical misstep, transforming a deeply personal regret into a profitable public spectacle. The undeniable fallout derailed a promising mainstream trajectory, replacing blockbuster offers with quiet industry isolation. Her acting legacy was swiftly overshadowed by a media obsession with her altered appearance, locking her in a destructive cycle of fame. In an industry that demands eternal perfection, the most brutal punishment is often reserved for those who visibly fail: to freeze time. Number 18. Liza Minnelli. Born into Hollywood royalty, Liza Minnelli carved her own formidable empire, becoming an untouchable icon of theater and cinema. Her electrifying stage presence cemented her status as a generational powerhouse. Studios aggressively marketed her magnetic glamour, projecting a fiercely independent starlet draped in sequin perfection and surrounded by deafening applause. The relentless machinery of the 80s entertainment industry demanded an impossible standard of perpetual youth. As the pressure to freeze her legendary image intensified, reports indicated a reliance on irreversible cosmetic decisions. This fiercely guarded illusion of theatrical immortality fractured under the blinding scrutiny of tabloid flashbulbs. Her personal struggle for preservation rapidly devolved into a devastating PR crisis, as the media viciously documented every physical modification. This unforgiving narrative ultimately overshadowed a revolutionary artistic legacy, trapping a beloved icon in a destructive cycle of fame. The public obsessively scrutinized her altered appearance, punishing the vulnerability they once cheered on stage. Behind the most dazzling theatrical marquees, the heaviest toll of stardom is often the brutal erasure of a woman's natural evolution. Number 17. Brigitte Nielsen. Brigitte Nielsen exploded onto the 1980s cinematic landscape as a statuesque icon of fierce, untouchable glamour. With her striking features and commanding physical presence, she rapidly secured her place in high-profile action blockbusters. Studios capitalized fiercely on her imposing aura, aggressively projecting a vision of powerful, unyielding perfection across endless magazine spreads and flashlit red carpets. The unforgiving glare of that initial spotlight eventually demanded an impossible ransom for her continued relevance. As the entertainment machine notoriously devalues maturing leading ladies, the media speculated she was thrust into a destructive cycle of fame, relentlessly pressured to maintain her trademark allure. Tabloid culture abruptly turned hostile, weaponizing invasive paparazzi lenses to dissect every perceived physical shift in real time. This merciless public examination successfully eclipsed her early theatrical triumphs, reducing a formidable cinematic presence to sensationalized headlines. Her legacy became permanently entangled in a heavily publicized battle against the natural progression of time. Beneath the blinding aesthetics of 80s blockbuster royalty, the most profound cruelty is an industry that forces its brightest stars to outrun their own humanity. Number 16. Kathleen Turner. Throughout the vibrant 1980s, Kathleen Turner commanded the silver screen as an intoxicating cinematic force. Armed with a famously husky voice and magnetic presence, she redefined the modern femme fatale. Studios capitalized heavily on this undeniable allure, projecting a vision of unbreakable, seductive power across countless blockbuster posters. Behind polished studio lighting, an agonizing physical battle was systematically tearing that curated perfection apart. While the actress secretly fought a debilitating autoimmune illness, required medical treatments, triggered drastic physical shifts the camera refused to forgive. Ignorant of her private suffering, relentless tabloids immediately launched a brutal campaign of character assassination. Paparazzi lenses aggressively weaponized invasive before and after photographs, selling a sensationalized narrative of a rapidly fading siren. This ensuing media frenzy